when people think that you don't exist and they're carrying on with their day, they're willing to say things that they aren't necessarily going to say in front of a group of people, or, you know, so the kind of insight that you can get from that is just tremendous. And the insights of, to me, when I listen to Pearson, my vision of Canada was that it was all of the things that the U.S. had committed itself to being, without a long history of segregation as in slavery, right? Like some of the U.S. history and how it's evolved comes out of slavery and segregation. Now Canada has segregation, it has slavery, which most Canadians don't know, but the reality is that Canada has historically seen itself as being able to go beyond that. And so when my expectation is in the multiculturalism is good in terms of saying, oh, well, we should, you know, get together and converse. But if you converse and you aren't encouraging people to be as open and honest as they might be, that's not real conversation as far as I'm concerned. And we can't grow very much from that. To me, we grow the most when we're challenged. So we all look for comfort and warmth and support. But it is critical that we go beyond those boundaries and put ourselves in situations where we aren't comfortable. Like most of the people, when I talk about when I came to Canada and where I went and what I did, you're nuts. Why would you ever put yourself in those situations? You know? Without being in those situations, I don't think I would be the person that I am. Without those experiences, to a great extent, some of which probably I wouldn't necessarily want to have, I couldn't raise the 3 young people that I raised with their dad, right? That they would be very different people.
What about the school system now? Are there some changes that you would advocate for?
I think that for the school system now, for big districts, it's really somewhat of a challenge. Historically in Vancouver, it was really difficult for them to hire. I mean, I thought it was interesting, like even when I remained on committees after I was on the school board. I stayed on the race relations committee for quite a while. Like 17 years, probably too long.
17 years.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's simple things like if you have English as a second language, that program in schools, one doesn't want you to displace teachers that have been there. But don't you think that having teachers that have English as a second language and teachers of color in the classroom working with these students would be a critical thing, not only for more recent arrivals, but for all students, right? It broadens their sense of the world and who we all are, right? And that's what Canada's about, right? This is a newer country, right? And we should be about demonstrating what we say we believe in. The whole notion of multiculturalism and the presence of the 3 founding communities, First Nations, the English and the French, right? Or the French and the English, and what all of that means, and then all the rest of us that have arrived, you know, too. So what does that blend mean? And how do we celebrate, really, not, you know, kind of cake and cookies and dancing, but what does it really mean? We have, you know, there's more, you know, we have people who are amazing at the wealth of experiences and knowledge that they bring to Canada. And it's to our detriment not to, for all of us, not to acknowledge that, acknowledge them, acknowledge communities, and integrate that all into who we are, right? We seem to often dwell on, oh, well, these people are bringing their conflicts here from different places. Well, how about all the wonderful stuff that people are bringing here? And let's face it, when I came to Canada, I mean, the Scottish and the Irish and the English, I mean, they have their differences too. When I came to Canada, I mean, I had premiers talking about we shouldn't have French on the cornflake box, right? You probably know that. I mean, again, it's not like Europeans of all, people of European ancestry, as if that's monolithic too, have all gotten along. So how can we truly be an example for the world in terms of what the very best that a diverse cultural community can be, right? Because Canada can do that. We can demonstrate that, we can model that. If we're willing to give up some of our, well, it comes out of fear, I believe, that people who traditionally had power don't want to give it up. I mean, we still, I used to sit and listen to CBC and they're talking about the old country, and I was like, what old country are you talking about, right? I mean, but again, it's the kind of nuances that we've gotten into as a society, and it demonstrates our biases. But anyone saying, well, you know, do you think that that's a reasonable thing to say? We take great exceptions to them saying that rather than saying, oh yeah, you know, I hadn't even thought about that before. Yeah, that is kind of a biased thing to be saying, right? Because Canada's more about, if anyone has the right to kind of talk about this as, you know, their country, and is First Nations people, right? You know, and then we get, I'm going to say pissy because that's what I generally say, pissy about that when First Nations people claim, you know, this territory, right? Oh, well, you know, it's not theirs because they did nothing with it until we got here. Well, you know, maybe that's true. I don't think it's true. Maybe it's true to you, but, you know, let's carry on. And they've been willing to share a wonderful gift with all of us, right? Which is this particular territory and the wealth that comes from it. And we have an obligation, like I think most First Nations people say, we have a stewardship to look after this place and make it the very best that we can make it. And I think both in terms of our interrelationship as well as looking at